The forest of Aokigahara, draped in perpetual twilight, has been called many things over the centuries. The sea of trees, the suicide forest, the place where compasses spin and whispers carry through the windless air. But among the many tales that surround it, one legend remains whispered only among locals, a story they hesitate to share with outsiders. The village that appears at night, hidden deep within the forest, where those who enter never return. It begins, as most stories do, with someone disappearing. In the autumn of 1997, a young man named Hiroshi Tanaka was last seen near the forest's edge. He told friends he was going hiking, though he carried no real supplies, only a small camera and a notebook. Days passed, then weeks. Search teams combed the forest, following the faint trails that wound between black volcanic rock and ancient trees. They found Hiroshi's backpack near a moss-covered boulder, the straps torn, but no sign of him. His notebook contained only a single page with shaky handwriting. I hear voices at night, a village, lanterns in the dark. I must follow. That was all. The police report filed him as another unfortunate who had gone into Aokigahara and lost his way. But among those who lived near the forest, especially the elderly who carried fragments of old folklore, his words were chilling confirmation of something they had long feared but rarely discussed: the hidden village that lured people in after dusk. The legend claimed that on moonless nights, faint lanterns could be seen glowing between the trees, leading wanderers off the trails. If one followed, they would eventually come across an old village, a place untouched by time where the houses were made of rotting wood paper. Lanterns swayed though there was no wind, and shadows moved where no person should be. The villagers, they said, were not alive, but not quite dead either. Faces pale, eyes black, speaking in voices that echoed like many overlapping whispers. And once you stepped into their streets, you would never step out again. For most, this was just another ghost story tied to a forest already infamous for death and despair. But Hiroshi's disappearance left a scar in the memory of those who searched for him. And over the years, more cases piled up. Hikers, travelers, sometimes entire groups of friends who vanished after sundown, leaving only scattered belongings behind. 20 years later, in 2017, a documentary filmmaker named Naomi arrived in the region. She had grown up hearing the tales of Aokigahara and wanted to capture its legends on film. But unlike others, Naomi wasn't interested in the stories of suicides or ghosts that the media so often focused on. What caught her attention was Hiroshi's strange final note and the whispers of the hidden village. Naomi had a reputation for chasing dangerous legends. She had filmed in abandoned mines, crumbling temples, and forgotten shrines across Japan. She claimed she wasn't afraid of spirits. What frightened her was leaving a mystery untold. She came with two assistants, Riku and Aya, both university students fascinated with folklore. They carried cameras, audio equipment, and enough supplies to last several days in the forest. Their plan was simple: explore Aokigahara by day, capture interviews with locals, then stay overnight near the deeper trails to see if they could find any sign of the so-called phantom village. The locals were not welcoming. At a small roadside tea shop near the forest, an elderly woman, her back bent with age, warned Naomi directly, "Do not film at night. The forest does not forgive. People go missing because they are called. Once you hear the voices, it is already too late." When Naomi asked about Hiroshi, the old woman's eyes narrowed. The boy was foolish. He followed when he should have stayed still. The village takes those who are restless, who seek too much. It feeds on them. Despite the warnings, Naomi and her team pressed on. On their first day in the forest, they followed the tourist trails where signs warned of despair and urged visitors to reconsider their choices. Wooden crosses and ribbons tied to trees marked paths back to safety. The forest was eerily quiet, the thick trees blocking out wind and muffling sound. Even birds seemed absent. Naomi filmed every detail: the gnarled roots breaking through the ground, the way compasses twitched uselessly, the heavy silence that seemed to press against the skin. But as they moved deeper, Past the well-worn trails, the air grew colder, and the light dimmed unnaturally. By dusk, they had set up camp near a cluster of jagged volcanic rocks. Riku joked nervously about the forest spirits, while Aya checked the audio equipment. The microphones, though working perfectly earlier, now picked up faint static, as if something invisible moved just beyond hearing range. That night, Naomi sat awake by the fire, listening. The silence of Aokigahara was not empty. It was too heavy, too deliberate, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. And then she heard it. A sound carried faintly through the trees, the rhythmic clatter of wooden clappers, like those used at Shinto shrines. She turned, straining her ears. It came again, followed by the distant, unmistakable glow of a lantern flickering between the trunks. Naomi's heart raced. She grabbed her camera, whispering for Riku and Aya to wake. They rose groggily, confused, until they too saw the faint orange light weaving through the forest, bobbing gently as though carried by unseen hands. Could it be another hiker? Aya whispered. But they all knew no one should be this deep in the forest at night. Without waiting, Naomi started after the light, her camera rolling, determination burning in her chest. The others followed reluctantly, their flashlights cutting narrow tunnels through the darkness. The forest seemed to close around them, paths twisting where none had been before. The lantern's glow stayed always just ahead, never close enough to catch, never far enough to lose. And then, after what felt like hours, though their watches said only minutes had passed, the trees opened into a clearing. There it was, an old village, hidden within the sea of trees. The houses leaned with age, their wooden frames blackened with rot, roofs sagging under the weight of moss and vines. Yet paper lanterns hung outside each doorway, glowing with a faint orange light that flickered without flame. The streets were narrow, lined with stone that seemed older than memory. And then the whispers began. They rose softly at first, like wind moving through reeds, then grew louder, overlapping voices speaking in tones Naomi couldn't understand. The language was ancient, syllables distorted, as though many mouths spoke the same words at once. Aya clutched Riku's arm, her face pale. "Naomi, we shouldn't be here." But Naomi raised her camera, filming feverishly. "This is it. Do you see? This is real." The villagers appeared then, figures emerging from the shadows between the houses. They moved slowly, unnaturally, their limbs bending with an almost puppet-like stiffness. Their faces were pale, almost translucent, eyes black voids that reflected no light. One by one, they turned toward Naomi and her companions. The whispers grew louder. Naomi felt a chill sweep through her body, but she couldn't stop filming. Something in the air compelled her, like an invisible hand pressing her forward. She wanted, no, needed, to step into the village. But Aya screamed. From the corner of her eye, she saw another figure standing behind them, blocking the way back into the forest. Unlike the villagers, this one was tall, cloaked in shadows, its face hidden beneath a wide straw hat. In its hand, it held a staff of twisted wood, from which hung dozens of tiny bells that jingled without wind. The sound froze them where they stood. The villagers began to move closer, their heads tilting at unnatural angles, their feet dragging across the stone streets. Naomi lowered her camera at last, breath shallow, as realization dawned. This was not a story to be told. It was a trap. Aya grabbed her arm, pulling her backward, but the cloaked figure lifted its staff, and the bells rang again. The forest shifted, paths dissolving, trees rearranging, until the only way forward was deeper into the village. The lanterns swayed, the whispers screamed, and the three of them were swallowed whole. Naomi's pulse thundered in her ears as she stumbled into the narrow streets of the village, Aya gripping her arm like a lifeline. Riku lagged behind, eyes wide, mumbling about turning back, but the forest had vanished. The trees, the trails, the familiar mossy boulders, all had disappeared, leaving only the rotting village. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood and something fouler, clinging to the skin. Lanterns flickered without breeze, casting shadows that stretched and contorted like living things. Every step echoed too loudly, as though the village itself was listening. "Where are we?" Aya whispered. Naomi swallowed, trying to steady herself. She felt the pull of curiosity, the compulsion to explore. Her camera rolled, catching every flicker of light and shadow. I don't know, she admitted. But we need to keep moving. Maybe someone here can help us. The villagers were watching. Black-eyed figures paused at doorways, heads tilting impossibly. Some moved jerkily, others hovered, almost gliding. Their whispers grew louder, forming a chorus impossible to ignore. Suddenly, the cloaked figure reappeared at the far end of the street, staff tapping rhythmically. The tiny bells jingled, an unsettling melody that commanded obedience. It gestured with the staff, guiding them toward a hall of dark wood, its doors slightly ajar. "You think it's safe?" Riku asked. Naomi shook her head. "We don't have a choice." As they approached, whispers crescendoed. Villagers parted silently, eyes fixed on them. Inside, the floorboards creaked, walls seemed to pulse. In the center sat a large stone basin filled with black water, candles bending unnaturally around it. Naomi lifted her camera. "What is this place?" A voice layered with multiple tones spoke from everywhere. "Welcome, seekers, to the heart of the village." The cloaked figure revealed a swirling void instead of a face. Bells chimed, and Naomi felt vertigo, a sense of falling into nothing. "You are here because you sought," the voice continued, "because you could not resist." Riku stepped back. "We didn't. We just wanted to film." The figure tilted its head. "Curiosity is the bait, fear, the hook. Those who linger are collected." Naomi forced herself to ask, "What happens to the people who are collected?" The basin stirred without wind. Faces appeared, mouths opening in silent screams. Naomi felt bile rise. "They become part of the village," the voice said. "The village preserves them, gives them form, gives them voice, yet they cannot leave." Aya gasped. "You mean they're dead?" The figure's staff tapped again, faces twisted and rippled. Not alive, not dead, something between. The village feeds on their stories, fears, regrets. In return, it gives eternity. Here, with us. Naomi felt a cold hand clutch her chest. The pull she had felt, the urge to follow the lanterns, was compulsion. The forest, the village, the cloaked figure, they had drawn her in. Riku screamed, pointing to a doorway. A young man with a notebook stood there, eyes wide with terror. "Hiroshi," Naomi whispered. I tried to leave. It doesn't let you. I've been here. Years. Though it feels like moments. Or centuries." Naomi's camera trembled. Why are you still here?" "They give you forms. They let you speak, but you can't go back. You belong to the village now. The forest. It watches. It waits. It calls." Aya sobbed. "We have to leave now." Naomi tried to retrace steps, but the hall had changed. Doors were gone, replaced by solid walls. Shadows writhed, whispers now almost intelligible. "Stay, stay, stay." The cloaked figure moved closer, staff tapping rhythmically. The air thickened. Naomi stumbled, pulling Riku and Aya. Suddenly, a narrow corridor appeared. Villagers stayed at the edges, watching. "This way," Naomi shouted, leading them through twisting passages, walls bending as though alive. At the end, a small courtyard appeared, overgrown with moss, a single lantern burning at its center, the one that had drawn them in. "It's a trap," Hiroshi's voice echoed. "Every lantern, every path leads deeper. Once you see it, you cannot leave." Naomi swallowed. "Then how do we get out?" The whispers twisted into high, sinister laughter. The cloaked figure appeared again. Escape required more than walking. It required understanding, bargaining, survival. Riku panicked, turning to flee, but the corridor had vanished. Aya clutched Naomi's sleeve. "We're trapped." Naomi remembered Hiroshi's notebook. Follow the lanterns, listen, record, survive. Observation and understanding were the key. She lifted her camera. "We are here. We mean no harm. We seek to understand, not to steal, not to take." The cloaked figure tilted its head. Bells chimed softly. Whispers subsided into a low hum. One villager stepped forward, hand outstretched. Those who enter must listen, but the forest it can release sometimes, if the seeker proves worthy. Naomi nodded. We will listen. The figure guided them deeper, showing rooms of artifacts, photos, remnants of the lost. Whispers formed fragments of memories, laughter, screams, pleas. Hours or days passed. Time lost meaning. Naomi recorded everything, noting the villagers' unnatural movement and the forest's subtle infiltration. Then the inner courtyard reappeared. The lantern flickered, pointing toward the forest. The cloaked figure watched silently, offering a path. Naomi whispered, "This is our chance." They followed the lantern. Villagers watched silently. Whispers faded. The corridor twisted one last time, and they stepped into the open forest. The forest remained dark, silent, heavy with moss. But they were free. For now. Naomi lowered her camera, realizing they had survived the village's lure. Yet deep in her mind, she knew Aokigahara was patient. It waited. And for those who sought its secrets, it always called. The forest seemed endless as Naomi, Riku, and Aya stumbled through the undergrowth, the lantern light from the village fading behind them. The cool night air hit their faces, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the hidden village. Yet despite their escape, Naomi felt no relief, only a lingering weight, a sensation that something unseen followed them. They let us leave, Riku panted, clutching his side. Why? Why now? Naomi shook her head, her camera still rolling, hands trembling. I don't know. Maybe we proved we could listen, not just act out of fear or curiosity. Maybe that's what it wants. Aya, silent until now, whispered, or maybe it's just teasing us, letting us think we're safe. Naomi didn't answer. She could feel it too. The pull, subtle but insistent, a sensation that someone, something, was watching them from just beyond sight. Every shadow between the trees seemed alive, every rustle in the underbrush a whisper of unseen presence. They pressed on, following faint paths, hoping to reach the edge of the forest before dawn. But Aokigahara is no ordinary forest. Its trails twist and loop, its trees rearrange, its paths deceive. Hours, or perhaps minutes later, Naomi realized they had been walking in circles. The same gnarled roots, the same moss-covered boulders appeared again and again. Naomi's heart sank. The forest was not just a barrier, it was a sentient labyrinth, a living trap. And the village was at its heart. Riku stumbled over a root, cursing. This is insane. We'll never get out. Naomi tried to calm them. Keep going, don't panic. The path exists even if we can't see it clearly. And then they heard it. A sound, soft at first, a distant echo of a wooden clapper. A single, deliberate chime, repeating at irregular intervals. Naomi froze, recognizing it immediately. The lanterns, the village. They hadn't escaped. It was calling them back. They're coming for us, Aya whispered, voice trembling. No, Naomi said firmly. We can't let it call us. We have to resist. But resisting Aokigahara is not simple. The forest does not bend to willpower alone. As they pressed onward, the whispers began anew, this time faint but insistent, threading through the trees, curling around their minds. They spoke of lost paths, of mistakes, of loneliness. The voices were familiar, the faces from the village, Hiroshi, the other collected souls. And with each step, the temptation to follow them grew stronger. Naomi realized then the horrifying truth. The village was not confined to its hidden clearing. It was a seed within the forest, a network of influence that could reach out, whispering to anyone who dared enter, beckoning them to step closer, to obey. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time had become meaningless. Exhausted, they collapsed near a cluster of rocks, gasping for air. Naomi lifted her camera, reviewing the footage. Faces appeared in the frames, flickering in and out. Hiroshi, the villagers, shadows twisting unnaturally, their black eyes unblinking. She felt bile rise again. The recordings, they carried the village's essence. The forest had left traces, and now they were inseparable from the memory. Naomi, Aya said softly, almost trembling. We need to leave everything behind. Just run. Naomi nodded. Right, follow me. They scrambled to their feet, stumbling blindly, the distant chime of the lanterns now a chorus, calling from all directions. Naomi's mind raced. She needed logic, a plan. The forest had patterns, and the village, as sentient as it seemed, must have limits. If they could reach a high point, a ridge, perhaps the forest's maze could be escaped by sight alone. They climbed a steep incline, roots cutting across the path, branches scraping their faces. Sweat and blood mingled, exhaustion pressing on every limb. Behind them, the whispers grew louder, more chaotic, a storm of voices demanding attention. Naomi dared not look back. At the top, the forest opened to a narrow ridge, the moonlight spilling across the treetops. In the distance, she could see the edge of Aokigahara, the faint glimmer of civilization, lights from villages and distant roads. Relief surged, tempered by terror. The village could still reach them. It could still call. "Run!" Naomi shouted, and they sprinted down the ridge, slipping over rocks, crashing through underbrush, the whispering now a roar in their minds. And then it happened. The lanterns appeared, not just one, but dozens, floating above the trees, swaying as if borne by invisible hands. The black-eyed villagers emerged behind them, their forms shifting, elongating, writhing as they advanced. Naomi's legs screamed with pain, her lungs burned, but there was no choice. Forward, always forward. As they neared the forest's edge, the first rays of dawn broke through the canopy. The village's hold weakened with the coming light. The figures slowed, flickered, and one by one vanished into shadow. The whispers receded like tidewater. Naomi's heart pounded, tears streaking her face. They had made it, somehow. Outside the forest, the air felt different, clean, alive. The sun rose fully, casting light over the roads, the villages, the human world. Naomi sank to her knees, exhausted, and Riku and Aya collapsed beside her, shivering and gasping. They didn't speak. Words felt useless after what they had survived. Naomi turned on her camera, hoping to preserve the last fragments, the proof of the village. The footage showed distorted shadows, black-eyed figures, flickering lanterns. But as she reviewed it, horror struck. Between frames, she noticed her own reflection in the camera's lens. Her eyes were darker than normal, pupils almost black at the edges. A chill ran through her spine. The village didn't just trap people physically, it left a mark, a seed, within the mind, the soul. A lingering presence that might awaken later, when curiosity returned, when desire to know overcame reason. Aya shivered. "Do you think it followed us?" Naomi hesitated, then shook her head, forcing a smile she did not feel. "I don't know. But we need to leave. Never speak of this. Never return." For months, they avoided the forest, avoided all mention of the village. Naomi released a documentary, but it was sanitized. No mention of the hidden village, no black-eyed villagers, no whispering corridors. She kept the camera footage hidden, afraid that sharing it might awaken the village again. Yet, even in the safety of her home, she could feel it. The pull in quiet moments, the faint flicker in shadows, the whispers just at the edge of hearing. And once, late at night, she glimpsed a lantern outside her window, swaying gently in the windless air. The legend of Aokigahara is not just a story, it is a warning. The village at night waits for those who are curious, who cannot resist the call. And it is patient. It does not forget. Years later, Naomi received a message. It was anonymous, sent to her email, containing only a single image. A photograph of 3 figures standing at the edge of the forest. One figure held a camera. The lantern swayed behind them. The black void of the village seemed to stretch through the photograph, reaching out. No text, no explanation, just the silent promise. The village remembers, it waits, and it always calls. Naomi never returned to Aokigahara. She never spoke of the village again, except to warn others in vague terms, as the old woman had warned her. Do not follow the lanterns. Do not listen to the whispers. Once you enter, it may let you leave, but it will never let go. The forest stands still, quiet, waiting for the next seeker. And when the moon is absent, when the wind dies and the silence presses down, if you listen closely, you can hear it. The faint clatter of wooden clappers, the soft swaying of lanterns, and the whispers of the hidden village calling you in. Some say it is a place of punishment, others a liminal space between life and death. But all who have survived it, all who have heard its whispers, know the truth. Aokigahara is alive. It is patient, and the village, eternal, unseen, waiting, will claim anyone who dares to follow its light. Hiroshi's notebook, Naomi's camera, the scattered items left by those who vanished, all are fragments of a warning, a map to the boundaries of reality where human curiosity meets something older, something alive and terrifying. And for those who are tempted, who hear the call in the quiet of the night, remember this: do not follow the lanterns. Do not enter the village. Once you see it, once you hear the whispers, the forest knows you, and it will wait. The trees are patient, the village is patient, and it is always calling.